All right, we're live with our first third time guest.
Yep, first
We,
third time guest. And it's
we
and
got,
it's a Thursday night too, which is kind of special for us.
yeah, that's true. We're on a different day, and we got Laura Siddall here. So
Siddle.
That was fine. You were fine. Just say Sid. It's easier.
we've got Laura here, and Laura has been a guest. She was one of our first times that we did a podcast, and then she also met with the Tribe Club in person over at the restaurant at the end of the strip. I'm drawing a blank on its name right now, but that was
I
fun.
can't remember either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just to hang out on the patio and chat with you. And you've always been very generous with your time and checking in, and it's fun to follow you. And I've got your shirt on too, by the way.
Oh, look at that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Look at that. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, that's sort of neat. And for people who don't know, Laura has been a pro triathlete since 2014. Is that right?
Yeah, that is. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it I keep thinking, oh gosh, has it really been that long? It
I,
feels still feels just a few years, but yeah.
it's been a few years, and I did not know this. I actually went to your webpage, I looked at your bio, and I did not know you were a mechanical engineer trained.
Yes, a long, long time ago now. Yeah, I was a chartered engineer as well at one point, but yeah, I'm not. That doesn't don't ask me to fix your bike or fix a
I
car or
was going
anything
to
like
say,
that. I'm not
are
very
you,
good about that. No,
I was going to say,
still
do you
go to the bike shop.
but do you do all your own bike mechanic work?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't trust myself at all. Not at all.
even
Yeah, much
better.
prefer. Yeah, much preferred to. I mean, touch wood, I can change a tire and all of those basic
Yeah.
things, but yeah, no, anything too much more than that, I take it to the bike shop.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you have a deep, deep race resume, and I can't go through all of it, but you've had, I think your PR at Kona is 907. Was that last year?
Um, I have no idea
Oh.
actually. I always I don't know what my times are. So I mean that sounds kind of about right.
Yeah,
I think last year or I think maybe my first year was one of my better performances in terms of time perspective.
yeah,
But last year obviously position wise was my best
yeah.
best to date. So yeah, I mean I think maybe that sounds a little bit right. I think it was a fast year last year for Chelsea and
That,
the rest of us tried to keep up.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think the weather was a little, was probably some of the better weather race days for
Yeah, we didn't. I don't think I'm going to say. I don't think we had it quite as good as the men. I think the men had
yeah, right,
had
right.
very good weather for their race, but yeah, definitely can't really complain of the last few years of every year I go back to, or every year I'm fortunate enough to go back to Kona. I kind of think, oh, this is the year that we're going to get the horrendous weather again, and
Yeah.
like it was sort of 5 years ago, and the winds are going to be up, and we've been pretty lucky of late. So maybe this year's this year's the year. Maybe it's going to be horrific this year.
Oh, that's great. I love it. And you are a past champion of New Zealand back in 2018, and you won Australia three times now, right?
Yeah, that's again pre-pandemic. I think that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
my first Ironman win. Was in Australia, and kind of meant a lot because I'd started the sport when I was living in Australia, so it
yeah,
was
yeah.
great to go back there
Yeah.
and win, and then was lucky enough to win the following 2 years as well. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so I'll stop there, but your race resume is amazing. And it is so great that you've taken time to catch up with us and talk. But I do have one more piece that I need to ask you about from your bio is that somehow you get your relay team, your swim relay team disqualified because you're a butterfly.
Yeah, as a kid, I would say, I mean, I didn't grow up as a swimmer, it wasn't sort of in the UK where I grew. I mean, I was a sporty kid and did all sorts of sports, and I think for that reason, and I did swim, like I was lucky my parents, put us through swim lessons when we were young, but more from a safety aspect of survival sort
Mhm.
of thing
Yeah.
rather than a swim squad perspective. But I did swim for school. We didn't have lessons, we did running. But I think, as I said, as one of the sporty kids, I was sort of in the swim team, and because I could swim as such, I was always put in the butterfly stroke. But having said that, I was never taught butterfly. And I never went to, like I said, never went to squad. So never really taught any of the strokes properly. And yeah, I got our school relay team disqualified twice for an illegal stroke. And I still to this day have no idea what I did or what I didn't do. So yeah, and it's funny now, you know, in with the squad here, my coach Julie Dibbons, and I'm in Boulder now, so which is great to get to train with the squad for swimming. But you know, whenever she sort of says we have to do butterfly, and then normally sort of she looks at me and says, well, maybe you just do breaststroke or something else, because it's really too painful to watch you try and do butterfly. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's great. And yeah, that butterfly stroke, you can get disqualified for a number of different things in that stroke. So
Yeah, no idea.
well, and you are a world traveler too. I was tracking you as you were going over to Roth, and your adventures getting to that race, and doing the race, and all the logistics of that. So where do you call home at this point?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that I've been able to travel through part of my career. You know, I grew up in the UK, but got the opportunity to go to Australia with my corporate job at the time when I was an engineer. And that's when I started triathlon, and then been lucky to sort of have the opportunity to travel and live in amazing places, be that, you know, I was a couple of years in San Francisco, and then back in Christchurch, New Zealand, and in Girona in Spain, and now sort of in Boulder, Colorado with the squad. So I mean, home is still where my parents live in the UK, I'd say, and where my family is. That's still home. But yeah, I mean, if we go on current places, it's Boulder, Colorado at the moment. I'm in the Boulder bubble. I relented. I resisted for a long time, and then gave up.
So I have a question for you. So like as an age grouper, and John and I have dealt with this a lot of times, traveling, being a triathlete is so stressful because of your bicycle.
Yeah.
So, and I know that there's been issues with people and bicycles and traveling in the last couple of years. Can you tell us about your worst bike experience that you've had traveling?
So touch wood. So, I mean, I really like traveling. I do say that, and I think, yeah, traveling with a bike is a pain. Well, more the packing and the unpacking all the time, I think, for me. And I think like you just have to go to the airport and just sort of take deep breaths and go calm, and like it's going to be what it's going to be, because there's just no point getting too wound up and too worked up, because it's just energy and stress that there's nothing you can do about it to some extent. I will say that I do think travel in the last few years is not very pleasant at the moment, or has got a lot worse, with just delays and baggage issues and everything like that, you know, and I don't know whether that's ongoing effects from the pandemic, I'm not sure, but and I have been, so I'm trying to think, like incidents, again, relatively lucky, but traveling a lot, you're going to have things. So I have had bike not turn up and that bit comes on the next flight, or a damaged, I think the first time I raced Roth, I had a damaged base bar, but the bike shop were able to fix it. I think the worst was like actually last year. I flew to Chile to race Challenge Puerto Barras, and flew in. I think we arrived on maybe the Tuesday or the Wednesday for a Sunday race, but my bike never left Denver, so it didn't even make the first flight out of Denver. And I'm somebody who gets to the airport really early as well, so I'd got there early, and yeah, the bike never made it onto the very first flight. And luckily I had air tags in it, so I knew exactly where it was. And you know, the airline kept saying it's on the next flight, it's now in Santiago. It's, you know, because it had to go, I think, Denver, Houston, Santiago, and then Puerto Montt. And they kept saying, oh, it's on the next flight from Santiago to Puerto Montt. And I'm like, it's not, it's still in Denver. I can see it, sort of thing. And it ended up, finally, we managed to get the bike at like 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. on the night before the race, so on Saturday night. So during the race had been amazing. They'd sorted me like about 3 different bikes to ride potentially for the race. None of them were the right size for me, but it was just going to be like potluck and here's a bike to ride. But I was very grateful that they'd done that. So yeah, my bike arrived about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on the Saturday night before the race, and I got back to the hotel and I started putting it together, and it was like, where are the aero bars? Now my bike, to fit in the bag, I have to take off just the aero bars, which is super easy, just a couple of screws and then unplug the cables.
Yep.
And I wrap them in, obviously wrap them in bubble wrap, and then I put them in a white pillowcase. Don't ask me why, it's just that, and they go in the bag as well. And what had happened when the bike got to Santiago, they'd done another security check, and there was all these issues about CO2s and
Yep.
can I approve, and that was a whole more delays anyway. Anyway, they'd taken the aero bars out and hadn't put them back in the bag.
Oh,
So this is now like 7 o'clock on Saturday before the race. And there was one flight left from Santiago to Puerto Montt that night. It left at like 9 o'clock. And I was like, there is no way they are finding in Santiago airport a white pillowcase full of aero bars. One, are they actually going to look? Probably not. Two, they're going to find it? No. Three, is it going to make this flight? No. And miraculously, I don't know how it happened, but the aero bars made the flight, and we went to the airport, picked them up. It was now about midnight. And so got the aero bars, got the bike, and and then raced the next day. So that's, touch wood, probably the worst thing, which, I mean, in the big
think
scheme
about
of
it.
things,
You got there 5 days early, right?
Yeah.
And we're able to at least sort this out. I know a lot of people, they travel big races, like an Ironman, for example, and they go in on a Friday for a Sunday race.
Totally. Yeah.
And
I
there's
mean,
not time to sort it out.
that's it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like to get there a bit earlier. I mean, the same, I traveled to Ironman Brazil just at the end of May.
Yep.
And again, had taken the aero bars off, but it was a new bike and I didn't need to disconnect the cables. So I just folded them down, taped them to the front fork, covered it all and wrapped it so that there was, you couldn't pull it apart or anything. And arrived in Brazil, and the airline had managed to pull out all the cables of the Di2 and completely like unwire it. So then I had to, then again finding it, and again the race were amazing, family mechanics sort of to come to the hotel and fix that, sort of put that all back together and things like that. So yeah, but it's kind of, doing it professionally, we have the luxury, I guess, of being able to arrive at an event early. I also like to anyway, just because I like then seeing the course and getting settled and being familiar rather than sort of coming in last minute, but appreciate that's not possible for everyone with family and jobs in the corporate world and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but as a professional, you also have, you can go to the race organizers and talk to them, and they can sort you out with a mechanic. And as an age grouper, sometimes that's not that easy, right? You're like calling a bike shop and they're like, well, we got 50 bikes coming in that we're having to build for people, and we don't have time for your.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, we don't always get that sort of treatment.
Right.
It's not always quite so preferential as people think. I mean, I've been lucky. Puerto Varas is a small race, and so we had great relationships with the team that were there, and they really looked after us, so they were doing everything they could to help. And it's it's a smaller race anyway, and a little bit the same with Brazil. I kind of probably fell under like one of the tour companies being at one of the hotels, and so they were able to sort of help me, but also didn't know a few local contacts and stuff that could ring around a few of their friends, and we're going to try and sort of, if I needed to go into the city, they were going to try and get me a lift and stuff like that. So it's not always the case that we have that access, but it can certainly help things a lot more than I appreciate as a age grouper coming in last minute and having to navigate around and find a bike shop, or get to the race and hope there's mechanics at the expo or something.
Well, that's a great story. So thank you so much for sharing that. And like I said, I think that a lot of us have a lot of anxiety with this. And it sounds to me like you're doing everything right. Like you're packing properly, you're taping everything. Like I always tape all my stuff together as well. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, you still kind of cross your fingers and say a little prayer and things, and I write on my case, like, please be careful. Thank you. It's fragile. And I've heard various, some baggage handlers or some airline staff like say, oh, please don't write anything on your bag, it just makes it worse. And others, I try and be polite with it and just say a please and a thank you at the same time. But I mean, touch wood, it's it's one of those additional stresses.
I love traveling and racing too, and here in Vegas, our community does a lot of traveling to races all over the world, from Kazakhstan to Canada to UK. But one of the challenges, watching you on Instagram, with some of your latest flight challenges of being canceled and what have you, uh, sometimes that's a hard thing to handle as a triathlete because we're so ingrained in doing our workouts. I mean, how do you even adapt when your travel
Yeah.
plans just go awry and you can't get to where you're supposed to be? And
I mean, again, like it's stressful, it's not pleasant, but ultimately, like there's very little you can do about it. And the more you get stressed and wound up about it, the more energy you're just wasting.
Mhm.
So it's kind of making the best of those opportunities when you are delayed. There's always, if you're stuck in an airport, there's always just, I would, get up and move and do some stretching, mobility work, and that sort of thing is always beneficial. If it's a long layover in an airport, it's like, if you can find, often airports, some of the big internationals, they do have a swimming pool, or just, walking around the airport, or if some of them have a gym, and you can just go and again do some strength and conditioning, or use a treadmill. Obviously it depends what clothes you have. I mean, my latest, fortunately, I wasn't racing in Roth. I'm not able to race at the moment, but I was still traveling over there and got delayed. And it was more that I was missing out on catching up with friends that was stressing me out this time rather than my race. But I was quite glad I wasn't racing, because it was an additional stress. But again, if I was racing, I would have got in earlier. But yeah, it's just it's trying to stay calm, and it just, like, it is what it is. And the more you get stressed and wound up about it, the more it will have an impact on your energy levels, your performance ultimately. I mean, it's hard to do, but yeah, you kind of just got to sit back and be, okay, this is a situation. What can I do in this situation to make the most out of it? And also then just thinking ahead, going, okay, if I'm now not arriving till this day before the race, right, what do I need to do when I get there on the ground? And can I do some research now just to check that I know exactly where I'm going immediately, so when I kind of get there, you can kind of hit the ground running a little bit quicker. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. So I want to get caught up with you on where you are right now and what
Yeah.
you're doing because you've been in the sport for a long time, and really last time you came to Vegas, you were dealing with the
I
shoulder problem, but
know.
you've had a little bit more challenges thrown in front of you.
Yeah.
Give us an
I
update.
I know, it's funny. Like, I have to say I've been so incredibly lucky throughout my career with injuries and illness, but it does feel like the last few years seem to be a bit of a recurring theme. So, but yeah, at the moment, what am I doing? Very little at the moment. I was in an incident at Ironman Brazil in the race whilst I was on the bike leg. Unfortunately, I got hit by a car. So, and I don't actually remember any of the incident itself, which is probably a good thing, but I have very vivid, memories, I guess, of before and after of what happened. And when I came to, I knew exactly where I was. So there was no sort of memory loss or memory issues at the time, but obviously just don't remember the blank period of what happened. And as a result of that, I suffered a small brain bleed in my head. So was taken to hospital anyway, and they did a CT scan which showed the brain bleed. So they kept me in overnight for observation. Fortunately, I didn't deteriorate, it didn't get worse. They did another CT scan the following day, and again, obviously the bleed was still there, but they were happy that it hadn't deteriorated and it was quite stable, and so they were okay to discharge me from the hospital in Brazil, and they were okay to let me fly home or fly back to Boulder the following day. So I was quite relieved about that, just to be able to get back to team and support. And then, yeah, it's been, and I say, like, off from the accident as well, like, really lucky, nothing broken, like no bones, like the collarbone was fine. That was what people, I think, when I disappeared off the tracker and then sort of rumors came out that I was in hospital, it was worried that there was things, it was the collarbone again or stuff like that. So yeah, a bit of road rash and some sort of random cuts and bruises, and obviously the body over the next few days, you get that delayed onset where it actually does feel like it's been hit by a bus, so to speak. But but yeah, so I got back to Boulder, and it was, you know, the first week, 2 weeks were very much like doing nothing. I wasn't allowed to drive, which was interesting when my car was at the airport as well. So very grateful for friends for helping out there. But I was recommended like get out and walk for sort of short 20-minute stints. But then the rest of the time was rest on the sofa, almost no screen time. So, and what most of us do naturally when we are resting is either put on a movie or TV or Netflix, or we're on the computer or on the phones, and obviously do any of that, or was trying to limit that. And yeah, so it'd gone from, I guess, 30 hours a week of training leading into a race, being, I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, but being incredibly fit and in a really good place, in a really good shape for that race. We'd had a long build up this year into the race, so hadn't raced for a while. I was excited to get there, but gone from that to literally, 24 hours later, 0 and nothing. And I don't think I've ever done 0 and nothing in my life before. Like, even in the off season, I'm, on a gravel bike or going and doing paddleboarding, you being active, because it's our lifestyle. It's what we do. We like to be active. It might not be swim, bike, run, but it's still just being out and about. But now, I couldn't even go on, big hikes as such. It was sort of 20 minutes and very careful. And then I'd have to come back and like rest and just lie down. So I got through a fair amount of audiobooks. That's been the latest thing. And then sort of had further checks. I had x-rays on my head and neck, and then an MRI on my head and neck. There was some concern around my neck and some compression, but I think that's more just degenerative and old age more than anything. And obviously like impacted by the accident and by the hip, but nothing. So just, working through with physio on that. The latest MRI still showed a bleed on the brain, but again, nothing that they were concerned about, and that it could just take a bit of time to sort of disappear. I then was able to start doing some light exercise, so 20 minutes on the indoor bike, again just walking, some light mobility work. And then where are we now? Then I was able to go to Roth, still in the middle. I was meant to be racing Roth, obviously couldn't. Was still fortunate to be able to go over and help at the event, but then coming back from Roth, had a catch up with the medical team again, and they sort of cleared me to be able to start riding outside again and running again, and we'd put some swimming back into that anyway, and so building up. So now I'm just building up the training. Still, obviously a long way from where I would normally be and where I hope to be, but just kind of happy to be here and nothing worse. And it's a long road back. We've got no timeline on recovery. I still do get symptoms, and we don't know how far sort of as we ramp things up, if I'm going to sort of get relapses or stuff like that. I'm still finding that the fatigue levels are incredibly high. Things I'm learning about a brain injury, it's not visible, and that's the hard thing. Like nobody sees it, so everyone thinks you're okay, because you're not walking in on to the session on crutches, or you haven't got a sling and stuff like that. So, and you obviously try to be in a good place and could put on a good face. So that's quite hard, because people just think, oh, you're back to normal and it's fine. But not just a lack of fitness from not doing anything for 5 weeks, but just the fatigue on your head is something that I'm kind of coming to terms with. As an athlete, I've never been the professional athlete properly that naps during a day. But now I am. I have to lie down. I have to switch my eyes off from things, just to kind of manage getting through things. And I'm finding that I do a lot of other stuff around my life as an athlete. I'm involved in a lot of organizations and want to be very proactive in that side of things, but my energy levels and my motivation to do that has dropped dramatically, and that's kind of quite scary as well. But we've made some good progress with training this week, which has been really exciting. I've managed to do some much bigger swim sets again, obviously way off in pace, but I don't care at the moment. I'm just smiling that I'm back in the pool and able to swim with the squad. I've started running outside, which has been good, and no significant effects from the training in terms of things, but obviously then in between time we're just spreading things out, and I'm having to rest a lot more than I'm used to, and still kind of cut back on a lot of things. So so that's where I am.
Well, that's quite a story. And it's so difficult with the brain. And I actually teach a lot about concussion and concussion management at UNLV. And the interesting thing is every brain injury is different, every single one. And so yours is different than every other one. And the symptoms that you have and how long they manifest are different. And so we still don't know the exact best way to treat these things because they're all so different. And so it sounds to me like you've got some good care and you've had people taking really good care of you. But in some ways they're still guessing. And that's scary for an athlete, right? Like with your collarbone, you knew, okay, it's a 6-week thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And everyone they know, there's a general standard protocol about bones healing and then what you can do and what you can't do. And you're exactly right. It's not just the unknown and not being able to see it, but it's, I don't know, like what's normal, what's not normal. And again, like you said, it's so different from everybody. I had so many people reach out. It was amazing when I sort of first mentioned I'd got it, but everyone's stories were so different. From people went straight back into training and were fine, and then like 3 months later started suffering, and then some people it's 2 years, and some people have gone straight back and it's been fine and it's nothing. And it's hard to work out where you fit and what's real, what's not real, what you need to take note of. And the brain, it's not something you want to take for granted or mess around with. And appreciate that. I'm really lucky. My team here, my coach Julie Dibbins has been amazing, and then she's worked with a physiologist we work with here as well, Jared Berg, has been great in supporting, and a couple of others, Lawrence Van Linden, who I work with for more sort of physio and stuff, and Christine Bell they were helping to sort out my neck as well when I initially came back, and with the strength coach Isgail and Kate Leigler. And I'm mentioning all because they have been absolutely, I wouldn't have got through the first 2 weeks or the 3 weeks without their support, just to keep me, Julie, to the extent of like just picking me up from the house and taking me to the swim session, just so I can sit on the deck and be out of the house and engaging with people, because otherwise you're very, very isolated because you can't do anything and you've been removed from that squad and that exercise and those endorphins. But if you then but then if I was staying at home, you almost feel worse because then you're not doing anything at all, sort of thing. And then so it's hard. But
I love the fact that you also mentioned that because you can't see it and because others can't see it, it can be actually even isolating for the person that has the concussion, right? Because you don't have the sling, you don't have the limp, right?
No.
And so other people don't necessarily know how to react. And so then it's like, because this is what happens to some people is they feel very self-conscious about their own health and their own brain and what's happening, that they don't want to go outside and they don't want to interact with other people, because they might feel like they're being a little bit slow to react. And these are all manifestations of a concussion that we don't often think of, historically. Oh, it's just you got a knock on the head. And we're learning that it's much more in depth, and especially the type of concussion you had, where you actually had a brain bleed. These are significant things, but once again, nobody can see it, and that's frustrating. It's frustrating for you and frustrating for the other people around you too.
Yeah, and you never quite know whether. I say some stupid stuff. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not like super sensible all the time. And then you start going, is that because have I changed? Are things affected? And like the first few weeks, especially because you're getting so many messages and you're going through kind of what happened, or you're trying to explain things as much as I wanted to at the time. I've kept details pretty quiet for various reasons. But then you get to that point of going, then you're talking to someone, it's like, have I already told them this? And is that me not remembering because my brain's impacted it, or is it just because I've spoken to a lot of people and that's just completely normal, and regardless of the brain injury, that would be the case, you know? And when you forget things, I'm like, oh, would I normally have forgotten this, or is this a result? And do I start to panic now, or is this just, yeah? So it's all those kind of things that, yeah, trying to adapt to.
And then for the athlete, trying to understand why we're doing all the testing that we're doing. So like all the neurocognitive testing, and you pass this one, and fail this one.
But no idea why.
Yeah, you don't know why. As an athlete, like we're being tested all the time. It's like, well, why did I fail that FTP test? Well, I know why.
Yeah.
Right. But why I passed this neurocognitive test, and then this balance test I failed. Well, why? Like, what is it? And it's really hard for athletes to wrap their head around that. And I'm sure you've went through those trials and tribulations.
Yeah, and the same, like working with Lawrence, and he was doing a lot of work around my head and my neck, sort of when the days I got back. And you know, after the session, he said, "Oh my God, you look so much better than when you first came in." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He was like, "Well, you were like twisted and this, and your eyes were different and all of that." And I didn't notice that, and that's just what it is. And he'd sort of, with his magic hands and manipulation of my neck and stuff, had sort of straightened everything out. And he was just like, "Oh, now if you went back and had those same tests with the doctor, you would be a completely different person just because I've worked on you and straightened those things out." And that's the stuff I didn't know, or you didn't realize. So yeah.
Well, I wonder, I'm sure you get this question a lot, maybe not, but I imagine being a pro triathlete for, at that point, over a decade, and overcoming challenges. Now you've got this brain injury, and it's a new challenge, and it probably would give you a different perspective of even in doing your swim workout. And someone said do butterfly, you probably would say, "Yeah, I'll do butterfly now."
Yeah, I'll do anything. I know. It's funny. I think that, the first Monday I was only sort of meant to swim 3K, and things were going well. So we carried on, and, and by the end of it, I did, a 5K, which is probably a massive jump and not what we're expecting. And I wrote my comments in Training Peaks back to my coach and stuff. And I was just like, I don't care what time I swam, I'm just all smiles. And I said, that's probably the first time you've had a positive review from a swim session from me. Maybe the clunk to the head changed some things in my mind for the better around swimming. And I'm just like happy to be, you don't think you take for granted the simplicity of going outside for a run, and being able to run, not just walking, and, of being able to go swimming, or even being able to, ride my bike outside again. And even saying it seems dramatic and it seems big that I'm talking about this, but it's been strange. I didn't think, you don't think you miss or when something is, I think one of the things I've realized this time, and which was very different from when the collarbone and then other, niggles or whatever, was this time it's like when it was taken away from me, I realized how much I wanted it back. And that drive to get back, yes, I started the sport late. I have been in it for 10 years, but there's no denying I'm at the older end of the scale. Yes, last year I still had one of my best years at, what was I, 41, 42, but I know I haven't got potentially that many years left, but I still feel the work with Julie that I'm doing, I have areas I can improve personally, and I can still get better in the sport for me. And I think though, kind of, again, I look back to, excuse me, the early months of the year, and I'd moved to Boulder, and, training was hard and just settling in was hard. And I probably didn't appreciate everything as much. And like I said, I didn't appreciate how fit I was and the confidence I should have had going into the race. And then I have nothing to show for it, and it's taken away, and I'm back to square one, or even further back than square one, it feels like. And so now I think, and I hope, and I want to kind of just hold on to that appreciation of doing something I love, and I do want to get back. I don't know when that's going to be, but I want to kind of get back on my terms. And yeah, it just makes you, even going to Roth and stuff and being on the other side. And, I had a mixed race at Roth last year, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go back again, but, I wanted, but then, put my name on the start list, as I always do for Roth. It's the first race in the calendar. And then it was taken away and I can't race, but I was like, okay, no, that's fine. I'm going to go and I'm going to be there and I'm going to be involved, which was amazing. And I loved it. And I loved doing that side of the sport as well. But it did kind of make me go, no, I need to come back. I need to be back here. I need to be racing. This is actually, so in some ways you go, maybe it was, I wanted to race Brazil and I would have loved to finish that race because I wanted to see what I could do, but maybe it's a good literal jolt of making you then appreciate maybe it had got a bit stale or whatever, or I'd lost the passion, and then it takes something like this to kind of pull it back. Not that I want anyone to have to go through anything the same to get that same passion and drive back. Believe me, I would have. It's hard not being able to finish that race with thinking back to not realizing it at the time, but realizing it now, sort of what shape I was in. But that's it.
It's the athlete mindset that that makes you such a great athlete to be able to approach a race and have that mindset of having performance goals and, knowing how to race a race. But now I imagine you're having to reframe all of that, and you have to reframe even what success looks like from a day-to-day perspective. And so that alone has to be a big challenge, just to change that from, hey, I'm going to do this pace for this, section.
Yeah.
Now you're looking at it quite differently.
Completely, which is again new, eye-opening for me. And also it goes back to Ted, what we were saying, like, because it's not visible, so you don't feel injured as such. You don't feel, but you at the same time you feel like you're coming back from a completely debilitating injury where you are almost starting at ground zero. So like I said, like a win the other day was literally just getting through a swim set with the squad, where I didn't feel like I was the special one or the odd one kind of thing, of having to do half the session or having to just not swim on a time repeat and things like that, and actually feel relatively normal from what I know of being back there. And a win the other day is was running outside for the first time with no significant issues. The win is then getting through this week and next week, but still making sure I'm doing the recovery pieces right and that kind of thing as well. So yeah, it's certainly a different, but again, like we said, it's hard because it's not, nobody can see you physically getting better. Like it's not that you go from crutches to no crutches, or from cast and broken bone or boot or whatever, to then it's hard from that perspective.
Well, and I love that you are getting involved in the sport in different ways. I love that you said that you had them take you to the swim mark just to be engaged and be connected. At Roth, you were the was it the ambassador for the 5K, or what were you?
Yeah, they it's an event I've like ever since I went there, like, or should we now, 7 years ago, they on the Saturday morning, the day before the race, they have a 5K women's run. And so I've always gone down and support it. And then it was actually the event when my parents came over to watch me race in Roth. My mum was so inspired by watching all these women run this actually not necessarily run, walk, jog, whatever it was, this 5K, that she actually said, oh, I'm going to come back and do this next year. And so at the age of 71, she started running, and then with the goal, and then came back the next year and did the 5K, which was brilliant. And so it's always such a good fun event. And this year, lucky, they asked me if I would start the race, which was super cool as well. So yeah, had lots of good experiences. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, and I got to read a comment here because we have one of our listeners right now, David, who's had a brain injury as well from cycling, and he said he's been having this conversation is very familiar to him about the non-visible injury. And so that's really great to share your story, because there's others that are dealing with this.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of touched by it, as I think I said, the number of people that reached out when they found out what had happened and said they'd gone through the same, or knew that had people that they knew had been through the same, and you suddenly realize that actually a lot more people are dealing with similar, or have had similar, that again, because it's sort of the silent, it's not visible, like you don't realize. So yeah, being, I guess, quite fortunate from that perspective, and hopefully connect with a few people and share stories as well. There's a friend from San Francisco. She had an accident at the World Long Course Champs in Ibiza, and actually she managed, I think she finished the race, but is then sort of since coming back as subsequent sort of issues. So we kind of, when I swam, did the first swim, and she was like, yes, I got in the water as well today. And, so cheering people on. So I hope that, he's doing all right as well.
Well, I'm just impressed that you did 5K in a swim. I've never done 5K ever. The first swim back is 5K. Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty. It's pretty.
No, well, that wasn't the first swim back. I do say
okay.
that. I did realize when I said that there's probably like a reality walk, because again, as a professional, like 4.5, 5K is pretty standard for us. No, I had been back in the water probably for a couple of weeks, but just literally like 1 and 2K. So the longest swim before then was sort of 2.5K, and we were going to just go up to 3K. So it was kind of I guess it was a big jump from there. And I know for a lot of people, 5K is like, oh God, I'm never doing that. But it's again, reality wise or relative wise of what we do as professionals. But yeah.
Well, I think you.
But
you
I must.
No,
sorry. I was just gonna say, the first time I got back in the water, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. It was really almost out of body freaky. It was like just nothing was connected. I can't even try and describe it. It was so bizarre. And of course, at first, I had I had shorts on, the buoyancy shorts to help. And I definitely wasn't doing flip turns at the start, but by the end of I think I just swam for 30 minutes. By the end of it, I was confident enough that, I could do a flip turn, and there was no negative effects on my head and things like that. But I don't know, that was a combination of, not knowing what the pressure was going to do, and just having been out of the water for so long. It was, really a really weird, freaky experience. It didn't fill me with much confidence at that point, but fortunately the second swim after that was at least felt normal from movement and body perspective.
I think that one of the other things that we often overlook in endurance athletes, especially endurance athletes that have been doing this for many, many years, is the aerobic system stays pretty fit even with, with rest, right? So like, because you've been a lifelong athlete, I don't think you're going to have like you're going to have a difficult road, right? But it's not going to be like starting from square one. Now, your training peaks, your CTL is going to be like nothing, but that's not reminiscent of decades worth of doing aerobic work. Whereas strength sport athletes, you lose a significant amount of actual muscular strength relatively quickly. And they have a lot harder time actually coming back. So I think that the one benefit you have is this aerobic life that you've had.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's talked to you about that, but I think that's one thing you can kind of hang your hat on.
No, they not so much, and not that comparison to strength-based sports. That's really interesting. I mean, obviously as athletes, we panic and we're not doing anything. We're sitting on, and actually I didn't feel too much the first 2 weeks, and possibly that's just because you're managing other things. And then I think like the longer it went, I was like, no, actually I am feeling kind of that out of shape. Being at altitude probably didn't help as well, maybe or maybe it did help. Maybe it helped me maintain some level whilst I was just walking around. But yeah, I think other things. So as soon as I was able to get back in the water, we started aqua running. And again, nothing high intensity, like just again started with 20 minutes, more from a neuromuscular perspective of trying to keep that running motion and keep those sort of nerves and muscles firing in the right way. And then another thing that we did as soon as sort of possible, and I don't know the science behind this, was actually sauna, sitting in the sauna, because apparently I was told that's a good way to try and maintain some of that fitness. So
Keep your plasma volume up.
yeah, so I've still been doing that. So yeah, I don't know whether that is helping. I guess, like you said, it's still a long way back. But it's all those little things that you try and work out, okay, how can we think outside the box that still protects the injury, make sure we're progressing and not regressing, but what can we do that allows you to keep, like the walking and things like that, but still, and I was doing things, although it was then you've got to be careful not to be too taxing on the brain, but while I'm walking, I'm thinking about the things I'm going through when I'm running. So what are my hips doing, and my connection between hips and shoulders and chest, and doing little things like that I hope that when I could get back into the running, that actually is going to be beneficial going forward anyway. But yeah, but then the thing you forget is that that's all of that sort of stuff is still working the brain, and it's the brain that's injured, and it's the brain injured, and it's the brain that's got to have the recovery and the rest time. So yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, thank you so much for sharing this whole I don't know, trauma and recovery.
Yeah.
And obviously we look forward to, connecting with you in the future and when this is all behind you. But I do want to talk about another area that you're really passionate about, and that's women in triathlon. And John and I, we've had several podcasts dedicated to this, and it's something that we're really passionate about. Can you tell us about some of the things that you've worked on specifically in that arena?
Yeah. So I guess I don't know why. Yeah, just always been passionate about that side of things. Sort of, I was involved in an organisation called Wicks Up, which was run by an Australian, Steph Hansen, which was Women in Triathlon, and she saw that the female side of the sport wasn't represented. Their stories weren't told in the media. The races weren't given the same coverage. This was several years ago. So got involved with her. Writing articles, doing race reports, making sure though the female side of the story of the sport was shown. And I think sort of off the back of that, just it's grown my passion and seeing that we need to, women's racing is amazing. Like I'm watching at the moment, not just triathlon, but we've got the Tour de France on, but it's the Giro Donne for the women. And actually I'll get up in the morning and I'll put the women's race on first because the racing's exciting. And whereas often I have to admit the Tour de France has been very exciting, but the first few hours, kind of like nothing, it's too much happening, or maybe that's not quite the case this year because fireworks seem to go pretty quickly, but it's just like, yeah, supporting women's sport and showing it. So a few years ago, I also sort of I saw that I wanted to help females younger in the sport or younger in sport. And I've had so many amazing opportunities in sport, not just triathlon, but just through the sport I played at school, and just the life skills I learned, and those experiences I think are so beneficial. And I had the opportunity with some sponsors to put a project together that we called Sid Squad, where I got between 14 and 21-year-old females in the UK to apply, and they had this opportunity to be mentored by me if they wanted to be coached by me if they didn't have a coach already. I'd included that. They got some kit and stuff from my sponsors and basically sort of helped them through their triathlon journey. I was so overwhelmed by the response I got and the video messages that were sent to me from the applicants that I tried to create a community so that all these girls had other girls around the world, or not around the world, around England that they could talk to about triathlon and what there was going on. So it was funny. I did it through Facebook, but ultimately they're too young for Facebook. Facebook's for old people, so it wasn't. It maybe wasn't quite the right medium. And then more recently, I was lucky last year to be selected for a program called Unlocked, which is again based out of the UK by an organisation, the Women's Sports Trust, and they select about 30 female athletes each year, and it's from all kind of sports and at all stages of your career. So some athletes had already retired, some were just starting out in their journeys, some were, it was para sports, it was rugby, football, cricket, what else do we have? Bobsleigh, shooting, archery, pretty much everything, which was just and the aim to create more visibility and create a voice around women's sport. And it was, I'm still part of that group. We've still got big plans to push female sport in the UK and then globally. I'm doing a lot of work with the Professional Triathletes Organization, trying to bolster up the female side of it. Just, and any race and the commentary I do and that kind of work, just making sure that the females are getting equal coverage, and equal, telling their stories and everything like that. So yeah, that's I don't know, the short story of everything I've been trying to do and want to do, and still more to do. But yeah.
Oh, I love it. And yeah, we even as a club are trying to figure out what we can do, because it's always easy to point to a race organization and say, well, why don't they do that for the female athlete? But really, what can we do even as a club to promote females who are participating now, but then also to grow and encourage new women to get involved with the sport? Any quick suggestions off the top of your head?
Oh my gosh, this is like, quick. No, I mean, a lot of it for me starts with the visibility.
Yeah.
So if we are showing the female athletes and that you can achieve and you can balance it with everything else in life and families, I think is probably the big issue, or one of the big issues. Just having that visibility, I think, will start to show people that what is possible and that you can. If we don't cover female races in the same way we cover male races, then how is any little girl, how is any female who's, working but wants to start sport, how are they ever going to see what's possible if we just always focus on the men's racing? So that I think is a start of just, and we're getting loads better for sure, like the coverage of races and I know probably cover it, but for me, that's why I'm pretty passionate about the 2 days of racing and having the women on a separate day to the men, because I just think it gives the women the rightful platform to show that they are freaking amazing athletes and they race, and it's a different style of racing, and it's but it's incredible and what they can achieve, and that deserves to be shown and then seen, so that and it's not just like inspiring the next generation of those children coming up, it's inspiring. I didn't start the sport till I was 29, and yes, I'd always played sport, but I didn't actually start triathlon, and so it's still showing those stories and telling other females what is possible. And it's not that like you have to then be a professional, it's just to be fit and active, and you can go out and do a triathlon, and it doesn't have to be a full distance one, it can be a sprint and it can be an Olympic, which I think is much more manageable for most people. So yeah, I think and that comes down to media, it comes down to brands and sponsors. We're fortunate we have equal prize money for 99%, I would say, of races. Do I think that contracts and sponsorship is equal? No, not yet still. We're getting better on the coverage, but definitely it helps when it's separate days of racing.
Well, I love it. And even at the age group level, it's so important to have that mentorship that you talked about, having someone who looks like you or has a similar experience than you, and even looking at age groupers across the lifespan, participating in the sport, things change, looking at young females versus middle-aged females versus premenopause, postmenopause.
Yep.
Everything's changing, and to get the right information to them is so important in terms of them being able to enjoy the sport.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you feel is the largest barrier to entry for female athletes that potentially like a club like ours, like a small club could help with?
I mean, I find that hard to answer because I'm single and I don't have family or kids. And so I would default to saying the stereotype of the female, if they've got kids and family, still stereotypically are probably the carer or the main carer. And so feel there's a guilt about going out and training for themselves or going and spending money on a bike or shoes and that sort of thing. But I say that from I'm not in that situation, so I don't know if that's effectively true, and if the women out there in those situations, if that's what they feel the barriers are. I think just, if we think about how we promote the sport, for women, there's a lot of sense of community and camaraderie. And yeah, there are some competitive women and you want to beat other people and stuff, but there's also this sense of belonging that I think is, again, I'm talking very stereotypically generic, I think is stronger on the female side than on the male side. So a guy, if he's starting a sport, he might just turn up to the local tri club and be quite happy about it and just sort of, whereas I think a female, that's a bigger barrier to just turn up. And so it's creating opportunities that welcome females into that environment. And there's a lot of arguments for and against female only training sessions, female only camps, female only races. I think as a starting point to get people into the sport, I think it's brilliant. Again, it's hard because I've never felt the need to do a female only event as that being a barrier. Having said that, like we said, go back to Roth, there's this 5K women's run and I absolutely love it. And I see it's amazing. And you see the people that come out from all walks of life. And again, it's just like run, walk, pushing a pram. And actually all the men then give the medals out and all the men are doing the aid stations. And it's kind of this stereotypical role reversal. And that obviously has a huge impact because you then see those women who signed up to that event, they then go, oh, actually, maybe I can do a 10K or a marathon or a sprint triathlon. And so maybe it's the first step of getting people in the door and just welcoming them in and I think creating a safe environment where they know. Again, stereotypically, I think females worry if they don't feel they are confident or have the knowledge around the sport. Whereas, again, a guy might not be he might not care. He'll just sort of bullishly go into it. And so it's, again, creating the environments where it's okay and it's welcoming and safe and for the females to come, and they're not going to feel, no one's going to make them feel an idiot or, not included sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're all right. Like, it's hard. Like, I'm in the same position. Like, I don't have kids. I mean,
yeah.
People ask me about kids and I don't have that perspective. And so I think it is hard for you to answer that. One of the things that I think, maybe we should do, John, I'm just going to throw that out, is like maybe help us some of these barriers, like some of the equipment stuff. If someone doesn't feel comfortable, like buying things is making like bikes available or even like running shoes available. I mean, I'm notorious for buying running shoes, running in them 2 or 3 times and then don't use them because they're right, but I can't take them back because they've been ran in, and maybe creating like a repository of equipment, like that's one thing we could potentially do.
Yeah, I think there's another, like, again, talking generally, but working with a couple of my sponsors, they find that the female market is a lot smaller now. Yes, there's less females in the sport, so we need to work on that, but also there's this sort of general feeling amongst females that, I'm not good enough to buy that wetsuit. I'm not good enough to have that nice set of wheels. Like, don't you need to be really good? And it's like, no, like you deserve, if you obviously money and stuff, but if you can afford to, you deserve it as much as the girl or the guy that's, standing next to you. There's this sort of feeling that as a female that, you're not worthy enough to buy those trainers, or, you're not good enough to have the latest shoe for running or whatever it is. So, yeah.
There's a few people that I coach that are females, and the one in particular, she didn't want to have an aero helmet because she wasn't fast enough. And I'm like, well, it'll make you faster, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to earn it. Like, you can afford one, or I'll give you like one of my old ones. Like, you want to try it or whatever. And same, like the disc wheel is the other one. Like, I'm not fast enough for a disc. I'm like, well, if it's windy out, like maybe you are plenty fast enough for a disc, and it's going to make a big difference. And everyone else is riding one. You should be riding one too.
Yeah.
And once again, if you can afford it, or you can, even like borrow one, right? And women have this fear that I've talked to, oh, well, I don't weigh enough and it's going to blow me around. Well, no, it's not. It's a stability. It actually makes you more
It's
stable.
actually more stable. Yeah, let's go into that conversation. Right? It's the front
it's
wheel.
More stable,
it's the
but
front.
The myths, right?
Yeah.
And the self-confidence issue of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not fast enough. I don't deserve that. Well, that's one of the ways you get faster.
Yeah. And what you just said about that your athlete with the aero helmet had exactly the same scenario, sort of some friends, a male and female, they're both triathletes, and the female's got her first race coming up, and so I got a few aero helmets which I borrowed, and she just didn't, I don't know, she said she didn't like it and the noise and stuff, which I get, but yeah, half of me is sort of a little bit like, is it that, or is it the confidence that like you just don't think as a female like you should be wearing an aero helmet or the disc wheel and stuff like that? But the disc is a classic one. I love, people saying, oh, if it's really windy you're going to ride a disc, and I'm like, yeah, it's not the rear wheel. That actually, the disc wheel makes you more stable because it brings your center of gravity back. It's actually the front wheel that you need to worry about. So yeah, it's interesting conversations for sure.
Well, and I love it. And companies need to even create gear specific for women too. And there's still a lot of gear that is just sized differently from men, but it's not actually built from women. And you mentioned wetsuits. I know there's a little bit of design changes, but there needs to be more of that.
And not just pink it and shrink it. Now, I like pink. I like the color pink, and I know a lot of women actually will want to get a pink color, but there's also a lot that kind of we can have female specific stuff that doesn't have to be pink, but it is technically suited to us, fitted to us, designed for us, right for the females, but just not but outright without being sort of
I'm so glad you said that, because it almost doesn't exist in triathlon and cycling world. Even like the huge markets, and this actually just I was reading about this just this week, that in soccer or football, this will be the first World Cup coming up, in women's World Cup, that they actually, shoe manufacturers have actually made a shoe specifically for women. Not
interesting.
Not just a shrunk down one. And this is like, and think about how big that market is, right? Women's football, women's soccer is a huge market, and this will be the first World Cup that these athletes have. Basically, a couple of manufacturers have finally done it. And if we think this is going to happen in cycling and triathlon, I think we're a long way off of a women's specific, for example, cycling shoe, or even a women's specific cycling frame or a time trial frame, right? Even when you look at some of the companies, and I'll throw it out like Live, for example, that's just a shrunk giant. Like it's not a women's specific. I have a friend that she bought one, and it came with long cranks and like a 50, I think it was a 5339
cassette,
just
chain ring and cassette.
And I'm like, this is not on a 172.5. This is not spec'd properly. You have the name Live and it's a female specific, but they're not living up to this. This is a marketing thing.
The standard, I'm going through having to buy a bike again at the moment because mine got damaged. And actually I hadn't thought about it, but when you think about it now, like the standard spec for the bike that I wanted to buy was whatever, 53 chain ring and 170 cranks and stuff like that. And I mean, I used to ride those as an age grouper, but I don't do that. I definitely don't anymore. And it's interesting. And I would go, oh, actually, there's no just spec down for,
And just finding even a high quality bike for someone that's 5 feet tall. Right. It's almost impossible.
There's a Swiss athlete, Emma Billum, a professional, and she's 5'1", I think, maybe. And she's struggled for years and years to find a bike because she can't find one. And she's again sort of been riding bikes that are too big and the wrong size and stuff like that. And it's been incredibly hard when she's such an awesome athlete. And the bike is such a big part of it. Now I hadn't heard that about the football and the soccer. That's awesome, because I know for a long time, and again, we've made huge steps forwards, but long way to go. like female kit was always just,
Mhm.
again, the shrunk, small men's sizes or whatever. And it frustrates me. I understand it from a business perspective when you go to an event and it's just unisex sizing. And so, and I get it, it's probably cheaper for them, and there's a huge cost on that. But I'm just like, can we not just have like
Yeah.
female sizes and male sizes? Because it is a different cut and it does make you
Right.
feel different. And, I don't want an extra small men's t-shirt. I would actually like a female t-shirt sort of thing. And there's been developments. So I'm going off on a tangent now because this is what you get when we talk about stuff like this. A lot of the sports teams are changing it so that the females don't have to wear white kit anymore. They can wear colored trousers, or I think Wimbledon might have changed that this year for the females. And a lot of football teams and soccer teams, it's not white shorts anymore. Obviously, they're making, helping to make it less taboo subject to talk about periods and females and stuff like that. And I think that's huge steps forward as well. But yeah, there's actually a good, I haven't watched it yet, but there's a good book called Game On, but it is very focused on female sport in the UK. And they've just put they've just made it into a Netflix movie called Game On. And I need to
check it
watch that, but it's just about the
Okay.
development of women's sport and stuff. So yeah.
But I think like we can, if we at the grassroots level start to push for these things, and when manufacturers do things, like the first manufacturer that comes out with a women's specific triathlon bike, like
Yeah.
we should be the ones that are like saying every female we know, go get that bike, right? Because then the manufacturers will see that, hey, actually there is a market here. And if you're the only one doing it,
Yeah.
it'll sell.
I think it's a
Yeah.
lot by having conversations like this. Like I even had a student tell me the other day that she could not find a hydration vest that was built for women.
Mm.
And it's little things like that, but you don't discover that until
Yeah,
you
think
start
about it.
talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second, we should be, why are we
Yeah.
we're not doing that? It just makes sense. So,
Yeah.
well, Laura, this has been so good to talk with you, and we're well over an hour now.
Sorry, yeah. Blame me. I start going off on tangents and get
Yeah,
excited.
no, and you're in a different time zone, and this has been great to catch up with you. We are so glad that you're okay, and really we're behind you on your road to recovery, and look forward to seeing you continue to make these strides in success. And you've just always been so generous with your time to share your thoughts and expertise in this. So thank you so much.
Well, no, I mean, thank you for having me back on. I always love the chats, and yeah, hopefully being in the same country at the moment, we can maybe like catch up. Hopefully when I'm back racing as well, like catch up with everyone at a race, or if I come to Vegas again for training or anything like that, I'd love to catch up with everybody. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Ted, you got last words?
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we're wishing you a speedy full recovery.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening.